Hello and welcome to the Kitchen Table Theology podcast, where each week, Pastor Jeff Cranston explores biblical theology that provides practical life applications in an understandable way. Thanks for joining us at the table. Let's get started.
Hello and welcome to Kitchen Table Theology. I'm your host, Tiffany Coker. Along with my dad, Pastor Jeff Cranston, we are seeking not only to help you know deep, solid biblical theology, but to know the Word of God and the promises of God that are given to us in His Word, all while holding to solid theological truths in your heart, soul, and mind. As you all may know, we are working our way slowly but surely through the Bible Overview series, and we're making some pretty good progress. We're going to stop today for a short pause and have a quiz. So I'm very nervous. Dad, hopefully I don't embarrass myself today, but you've got some questions for us. So let's just go ahead and jump on into our quiz here.
I think you're going to do just fine. But, again, the goal is not, I guess the goal is to get 100%, right? But the goal is to learn. And so if you get one wrong,
yes,
and you learn in the process, that's a good thing. So hello
Very
again,
true. Kitchen
Table Theologian. Thanks for joining us today. And this should be fun. So hunker down here with us and let's see how you do, Kitchen Table Theologian, on the quiz. We are going to go from 2 Corinthians up through 1 Thessalonians in the New Testament, and then 1 Samuel down through 2 Chronicles in the Old Testament. So there's 12 questions. There's 12 different Bible books, and they are the last 12 podcasts that we have done. We'll see what we've learned. So here's question number 1. So Tiff does not know the answers. So let's see how she does. Let's see how you do. And this will be good. Okay, here's the first thing. We're going to start in 2 Corinthians, okay?
Okay, going way back.
In 2 Corinthians, the Apostle Paul talks of the hardships he had endured while doing God's work. How many times did Paul say that he had been shipwrecked? How many times did Paul say he'd been shipwrecked? Now I'll give you some options here. Once, twice, 3 times, or 4 times. How many times did Paul say he'd been shipwrecked?
I'm going way back to my high school Bible class days. I think I remember that Paul was shipwrecked 3 times, but I'm not 100% confident, but that's what I'm going to guess. I know it was more than twice. 4 seems like a lot, so let's go with 3.
Okay, here we've locked her answer in. Kitchen Table Theologian, what's your answer? Once, twice, 3 times, or 4 times? So the answer is found in chapter 11, starting in verse 25, and it reads this: 3 times I was beaten with rods. Oh, that's the
thought
3
I
times.
won.
Once I was stoned. Oh, but there's hope. 3 times I was shipwrecked. So
There
you're
it is.
right. 3
Awesome.
times Paul said he had been shipwrecked. So there you go. That's in 2 Corinthians 11, 25 to 27. Okay, number 2. Now we're going back into 1 Samuel. All the way back. That seems like about 3 months ago, which is exactly about how long ago it was.
Just even a while ago.
Okay, who was Israel's first king? Who was the first king of Israel? Give you some options: David, Saul, Solomon, or Samuel. Israel's first king: David, Saul, Solomon, or Samuel.
Saul was Israel's first king. I feel confident in that one.
You were very confident in that one, yeah. Kitchen Table Theologian, what do you say? If you agreed with Tiffany, you would be right. Saul was Israel's first king. So Tiff, you're 2 for 2.
Awesome.
Very
Let's
good.
keep it up.
All right, now we're back into the New Testament and in Galatians. Here's the question: what should happen to anyone that is preaching another gospel according to the book of Galatians? What should happen to anyone who is, I wrote that wrong. What should happen to anyone who is preaching another gospel according to the book of Galatians? Should they be rebuked, be stoned to death, be accursed, or be banished? So if somebody's preaching another gospel other than the gospel delivered through Christ to Paul, Paul says they should be rebuked, be stoned to death, be accursed, or be banished. Which one do you think?
Okay, I've narrowed it down to be rebuked or be accursed. And I remember the word accursed because I thought it was an interesting word that we don't use all the time. So I'm hoping maybe we talked about it here. And it's either rebuked or accursed. I'll go with accursed.
All right, kitchen table theologian, what's your answer on that? I hope you've got it. So the answer is found in chapter 1, verse 8. Paul says, but even though we or an angel from heaven should preach to you a gospel contrary to that which we have preached to you, let him be accursed. So well done, Tiff. Good job.
Well, thankfully it was a different word. It stood out.
It's not a word we see very often, accursed. Okay. Back to the Old Testament in 2 Samuel, after running from Saul, David is finally crowned king of what? After running from Saul, David is finally crowned king of what? Israel, Judah, both Israel and Judah, or Jerusalem? After running from Saul, David is finally crowned king of what? Israel, Judah, both Israel and Judah, or Jerusalem?
Okay, I don't know that you're going to get a final answer from me on this one.
You got to give me one.
So I know that David is from the tribe of Judah. And at the end of his reign, if we can, I guess we call it a reign, as king, Israel and Judah were united. But I'm hesitating if they started as united or if it was just Judah, which was the much smaller part.
Yeah, Judah was the 2 tribes of the 12, and Israel was the 10 tribes of the 12. And they were separated for quite some time, yeah.
And I know that when, at the end of David's reign, they were together as he ruled over both of them. If he started with just one, it was Judah. But I don't know if he started with one or with the whole Israel and Judah together.
So what, I haven't heard an answer yet. You said,
okay, we'll go with just Judah because I feel like Saul was still around for a little bit.
Okay. After successfully evading Saul, David is ultimately crowned king of Judah. You got it right. You know, that was pretty significant because it marked a very pivotal moment in David's journey towards becoming the king of Israel. You know, Judah was one of those 12 tribes, and his coronation, I guess you would call it, in Judah laid the foundation for his eventual reign over the entire nation. So really good. Okay, we're a third of the way through, 4 out of 4 so far. You're doing great. Kitchen Table Theologian, how are you doing? So here we go. We'll jump back over to the New Testament in Ephesians. So here's the question. Through what do we have redemption according to the book of Ephesians? Through what do we have redemption according to the book of Ephesians? Here's the 4 options. His name, his blood, his power, or his word. What do we have redemption through what do we have a redemption according to the book of Ephesians? His name, his blood, his power, or his word?
His blood. I'm much more familiar with the New Testament, I think.
Okay, Kitchen Table Theologian, you got yours. His name, his blood, his power, his word. Through what do we have redemption? Well, Paul writes in chapter 1, verse 7, in him, Christ, we have redemption through his blood. So there it is, the forgiveness of our trespasses according to the riches of his grace. Very good. All right, I hope you're doing well, Kitchen Table Theologian. Let's go on to number 6. After this one, we'll be halfway through the quiz today. We're back to 1 Kings. 1 Kings. So get your 1 Kings hat on. King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon attacked Jerusalem, and Jehoiakim surrendered and paid him tribute for 3 years, true or false. Now, just a reminder, Jehoiakim was king of Israel, I believe, at that time. So Nebuchadnezzar attacks Jerusalem, and Jehoiakim surrendered and paid him tribute for 3 years, true or false.
Well, this was, you said in 1 Kings, but we also talked about it last week in Daniel, so it was a little fresh in my mind. That is true.
Kitchen Table Theologian, what do you say? If you said true, you would be right. That's exactly what happened. Nebuchadnezzar not only attacked, but captured Jerusalem, and that began the first of three forced immigrations, I guess you would say, into the Babylonian captivity. And Jehoiakim very quickly surrendered, and he went up to Babylon himself. He was part of the first group that went. So, okay, number 7. Now we're in Philippians. In the book of Philippians, Epaphroditus is mentioned 2 times. What specifically did Epaphroditus do regarding the Philippian believers? In the book of Philippians, Epaphroditus is mentioned twice. What specifically did he do regarding the Philippian believers? 4 options. Brought them communion, delivered Paul's letter to them, brought them an end times warning, or brought them loaves and fishes. I threw that one in there to be funny. So you really have
3 options.
Brought them communion, delivered Paul's letter to them, or brought them an end times warning. What did Epaphroditus do regarding the Philippian believers?
Well, this I remember discussing because we talked about, I don't know if it was specifically in Philippians or one of these other New Testament epistles, but we talked about there was not just a mail system to deliver these letters. Like, it was a big deal when the people carried the letter to the city from Paul or whoever the letter was from. So I'm going to go, I can't say his name, but he delivered Paul's letter to the Philippians.
Epaphroditus, you're saying delivered
Epaphroditus.
Okay, kitchen table theologian, what's your answer? Brought them communion, delivered Paul's letter, brought them an end times warning. And the answer is Epaphroditus is the one who delivered the original manuscript of Philippians to its original recipients, the church at Philippi. So, Tiff, you're 7 of 7. You're killing us.
You have taught me well.
Thought I made this one a little bit harder.
It might go downhill from here, but we started well.
We're not done yet, though. Okay. Kitchen table theologian, hope you're doing well on the quiz here. Number 8, we're in 2 Kings. So on the 2 Kings podcast, we mentioned someone who was resurrected from the dead. And upon reviving, immediately sneezed 7 times. Do you remember talking about that?
I do not, but no, I mean, vaguely. It's 2 Kings. That was a long time ago.
Yeah.
But I also, last year, my Bible study group here did a study on this person. So I do know the answer.
Okay. So let me do it again for our listeners. We mentioned someone on that 2 Kings podcast who was resurrected from the dead and upon reviving immediately sneezed 7 times. So here's the question. By whom was that person raised from the dead? By whom was that person raised from the dead? Did Samuel do it? Elisha do it? Elijah do it? Or did Manasseh do it? Now, by them doing it, obviously it was the power of God in it. But Samuel, Elisha, Elijah, or Manasseh. So what kind of answer you got?
Elisha was the one who, through the power of God,
very confident.
I did an entire year studying Elisha, and it was a little boy. I think I wouldn't be able to find it in 2 Kings, but it was a little boy, and he sneezed 7 times. It's unique. It kind of stood out to me.
Yeah. So it's in 2 Kings 4:35. Elisha got up, walked back and forth across the room once, and then stretched himself out again on the child. This time the boy sneezed 7 times and opened his eyes. So, kitchen table theologian, hope you picked Elisha. That's the correct answer. Number 9, in Colossians now, according to Colossians 1:20, by what did Jesus make peace in reconciling all things to himself? Let me read that again. According to Colossians 1:20, by what did Jesus make peace in reconciling all things to himself? Was it in his name? Was it in the blood of his cross? Was it in his mighty power? Or was it in his virgin birth? He made peace, reconciling all things to himself through name, blood of the cross, his mighty power, his virgin birth. What do you think?
I think this is very similar to that verse in Ephesians that you just asked me about. So I'm going to go with the blood of his cross.
Oh, you're playing the odds on a Bible quiz. I like it.
It sounds similar.
So, kitchen table theologian, you got your answer? His name, the blood of his cross, his mighty power, his virgin birth. What did Jesus make peace in, reconciling all things to himself? The answer is in Colossians 1:20, and through him to reconcile all things to himself, having made peace through the blood of his cross. So there you go.
There we
You
go.
got it right. 9 out of 9. Okay, wrapping it, coming to the end here. Number 10 in First Chronicles. First Chronicles, who was despised by his wife for dancing before the Lord? Who was despised by his wife for dancing before the Lord? Was it Eli, David, Nathan, or Asaph? Eli, David, Nathan, Asaph. One of those men danced before the Lord, and his wife despised him for it. Who was it?
So I'm not 100% sure on this one, but the only person I remember reading or talking about dancing in the streets, dancing before the Lord, was King David. So I'm going to have to guess on this one, but hope that's a good guess.
All right. What's your guess, kitchen table theologian? Eli, David, Nathan, Asaph. Here we go. First Chronicles 15:29. And it happened when the ark of the covenant of the Lord came to the city of David, that Michal, the daughter of Saul, looked out of the window and saw King David leaping and making merry, and she despised him in her heart. And so that Michal, spelled Michal, Saul's daughter at that time, was also David's wife. So the answer was David. Very well done. I wonder how I would have. Actually, I did try to, well, it's hard to take a test you
Create.
Yeah. But I mean, if I was looking at this just cold turkey, I wonder how well I do. All right. Number 11, in 1 Thessalonians, Paul said that he and his fellow servants were shamefully treated by citizens from a certain city. Name the city. Paul said, me and my fellow servants were shamefully treated by citizens from this certain city. Name the city. Was it Philippi, Thessalonica, Ephesus, or Colossae? So this is in 1 Thessalonians, but Paul is telling them they were shamefully treated by the citizens of Philippi, Thessalonica, Ephesus, or Colossae. This is a tough one.
I'm going to do process of elimination here. So if he's writing to the Thessalonians, I'm going to rule out Thessalonica. I'm going to rule out the Colossians, because I know in the first chapter of Colossians, he says, I always thank God every time I think of you. So I'm assuming that they don't treat him poorly there. Between Philippi and Ephesus, I do not know. So we'll guess Ephesus, but it's one of those two.
Ephesus. All right. Kitchen table theologian, have you locked in your answer? Were they mistreated in Philippi, Thessalonica, Ephesus, or Colossae? Well, Paul tells us in 1 Thessalonians 2:2, but after we had already suffered and been mistreated in Philippi, as you know, we had the boldness in our God to speak to you the gospel of God amid much opposition. So sorry, Tiff, but you had it down. Yeah, you had it down to a 50-50. So yeah, the citizens of Philippi, Paul said, they caused us to suffer and mistreated us. But there you go. So the correct answer is Philippi. So the last question is out of 2 Chronicles. So in 2 Chronicles, which king became leprous? In other words, which king caught the disease of leprosy? 2 Chronicles, which king became leprous? Was it Saul, Uzziah, Ahaz, or Manasseh? This king became a leper. Was it Saul, Uzziah, Ahaz, or Manasseh?
Did we talk about that in the podcast? Do you remember?
I believe we did, yeah.
Oh, man. Okay.
I don't think we talked. I would say we talked about it. I think it got mentioned. That's my recollection.
All right. I'm going to go process of elimination here again. Because this one, I do not know right off the bat. But I think if it was Saul, I would know or remember that. So we're going to rule out Saul. Ahaz and Manasseh, I do remember them as being the bad kings, maybe, who were conquered by other nations. They definitely could have ended up with leprosy, but guessing something else happened to them since maybe they were conquered. Uzziah, I don't know how to say his name. I don't remember anything about him, so I will guess him. Is that terrible?
No, that works. So I say Uzziah. I'm not sure that's the proper way to say it. It might be Uzziah, but anyhow, kitchen table theologian, what say you? Which king became leprous? Saul, Uzziah, Ahaz, or Manasseh? Well, we read in 2 Chronicles 26:21. So King Uzziah had leprosy until the day he died. He lived in isolation in a separate house, for he was excluded from the temple of the Lord. Well, Tiff, I am just, you did so very well on this. 11 of 12.
I think we should really only give me credit for 10 of 12, though, because that last one was a fabulous guess.
It counts, though. You got the right answer.
For how I process of elimination, how I take a test.
This isn't math where you have to show your work.
True. Yes, it is an educated guess. No, I'm going to have to go back and read 2 Chronicles because there's those three kings. I do not know a lot about them. So I learned something about Uzziah today, but have more to learn.
They do tend to run together a little bit, all those kings and all those names. Well, kitchen table theologian, I hope you did well. How did you do? And again, if you got them all or you got three, what matters the most is that you learn along the way. I hope that this was helpful to you. I hope it was beneficial. I hope you learned something today with some additional Bible knowledge. And I'll leave it to Tiff to sign us off, but good to be with you again. And we look forward to seeing you the next time.
Thanks so much for listening today on the Kitchen Table Theology podcast with Pastor Jeff. Again, if you're enjoying the podcast, we would really appreciate if you would just take a second to leave a review or a rating. And that really does help get the word out. So thank you for doing that. You can always email us anytime, Pastor Jeff at lowcountrycc.org. You can check out episode notes, pick up on last episodes at jeffcranston.com. And always thanks are due to our friends at Low Country Community Church here in Bluffton, South Carolina, and at Streamline Podcast for making this podcast possible. Next week, we will be back with our regularly scheduled programming of our Bible overview series. And it's going to be a great one. Dad, I'm looking forward to seeing and what all I have to learn. We will be in the book of Revelation. Until then, always remember the real power of theology is not only knowing it, but applying it. Thanks for joining us at the table.
You've been listening to the Kitchen Table Theology podcast with Pastor Jeff Cranston. Join us next time for more insights into biblical truth. If you'd like to know more on today's topic, please check out our show notes. If you have a question from today's podcast, kindly email us at pastorjeff@lowcountrycc.org. If you're enjoying this podcast, would you consider leaving a rating and review? We deeply appreciate your help in getting the word out. And be sure to subscribe on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, or in your favorite podcasting app to continue this journey with us as we learn about and apply God's Word to our lives. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time here at Kitchen Table Theology.